Once the model's hull was assembled, it was then time to work on assembling and mounting the tank suspension. The tank suspension is the one that the kit gives you. However, several mods are needed to be made to them to make the model a little bit more robust. Most importantly was the addition of the new EastCoastArmory.com DML Panzer II suspension retaining system. The suspension system itself has been added to the EastCoastArmory.com product line and is now available. For the model suspension, the kit supplies you with a one-piece swing arm and leaf spring assembly here. The road wheel would be mounted to this little nub, and the whole unit would then be fitted to the tank's hull. Now, the tank's road wheels are designed to just simply slide on and slide off. The wheels do have a small little plastic bearing like this ring here that would be inserted to the rear portion of the wheel that would then slip onto the swing arm and would retain it there. However, their retention system doesn't really hold the wheel in permanently, in that it just keeps slid on, and with a nice little tug you could pop the wheel right off. To fix this issue, I designed a retaining system that mounts a bolt and a nut to the tank's swing arm and allows the wheel to spin freely. If you notice, the fastener is not spinning, but the wheel is. But it keeps the wheel permanently attached to the swing arm. So there's no risk of the wheel sliding off if I either have the tank pushed, or if if I have to position the tank around outdoors. There's no risk of the suspension slipping off. Another modification that was made to the tank suspension was, if we have here, this is a stock suspension piece, in that if we notice, it's hollow in the back. It's just a front face molding with a hollow back face. Now, this portion here actually hangs below the tank's lower hull plate, and if you take low angles of the vehicle, you might see the hollow recess of the swing arm. So to fix that, I filled in this empty cavity here with an epoxy. The epoxy is then painted and is then weathered. Now, if we have this on the bottom of if you see this from the low angle, you will see that it is a nice solid unit, as how it should be. As we can see in this scene here, the suspension has been mounted. The suspension mounts easily to the tank. Just 2 little drops of glue on the swing arm over here, and on the leaf spring support here will support it will keep it nice and secure to the vehicle. Over here, now that the wheels are on, we can see that the solidified swing arms are beneficial. Otherwise, if you were looking at this model from this angle before, you would see a hollow swing arm on each of these road wheels here, which would detract from the look of the vehicle. Another thing as of note is there is a typo, or I found a typo on the model's assembly instructions. Over here we have the C-Series swing arms. These would be for all first 4 road wheels on both sides of the vehicle. If you notice here, the number says make 5 of each. If you do this, you will have the wrong amount of pieces made, in that there's only 4 road wheels on each side that need to be made for that one swing arm. The kit only gives you enough road wheels to equip 1 vehicle, so if you make 5, you will have a mistake, and you won't have the last 2 road wheels for the last 2 swing arms, which are this number over here. If you notice over here, it's correct, it says make 2 of these. However, this one, make 5. This is a typo. In actuality, you need to make 4. A similar procedure was done to the tank's return rollers. On the kit, the return rollers are just like the road wheels and the idler, in that they're just made to be inserted on without being held. Actually, the return rollers are more meant to be glued on permanently in their place. For my model, I wanted to make the wheels rotate. So to do that, I had to come up with a special retaining system to do it. I'll show you what the modified version looks like of the return roller mount. Here is what the kit gives you. This here is the kit return roller mount. It is one-piece plastic, and it is hollow on the inside. This here is the portion where you would take your return roller, add some glue, insert it on, and now you would take this unit and install it to the vehicle. But since I wanted mine to be functional, I went ahead and came up with this new version here. This version utilizes the kit plastic mount, but some changes were made. First, the molded-in mount was removed, and a new resin bushing was fabricated. There's also a bushing on the interior of the mount. The way it works is there's a screw on the inside and a nut, and when you tighten it, it will allow the piece to spin freely, but will not come off. Once the wheel is mounted to it, it will make it spin, and again, keep it nice and rigid. Another modification that was done to the road wheels, or to the return roller, is that, we see here is the kit original, is that it's a hollow piece, just like the swing arms. A simple resin donut was fabricated, and is just a drop-in replacement. Before the return rollers can be mounted, I painted the rubber tire. This is done because once it is onto the vehicle, it's going to be difficult to paint the tire in its location. So the back end of the tire, where the donut has been painted with the black, as well as the whole tire itself. Another thing that was also done to the rubber tire was that it was dry brushed with its weathering. This will save time later on during the build. Also, what was done was the addition of the tank's Zerk fitting. The DML wheel omitted this little piece of detail. In the center of the hub is the Zerk fitting, which allows you to apply grease to the bearings on the road wheel. This is done on every single tracked vehicle. For the Zerk fitting itself, it's just a simple wire brad that was put into a hole that was drilled into the center of the hub. Before I could mount it, I added some blue thread lock to the fastener, and as we can see, the wheel spins freely and is held on in place. For the model's idler wheel, the idler wheels themselves are nicely done as per the kit. And the wheel that you see here is built out of the box with really no mods added to it. The sprocket, as was mentioned in the box opening video, is comprised of 3 parts. You have the main hub and 2 rings. The sprocket itself has the small hole, I guess for the wrench or possibly for the Zerks, that is molded into the main hub. However, it's just a mere indentation and is not all the way through. That was a simple fix with the drill press. I just went in there and just drilled that out. On the back portion here, there are some knockout marks which are easily filled in with some glazing and spot putty and then sanded flush. The way the idlers mount is, again, like all the other wheels on this vehicle, there's a little plastic donut that would fit into here, and this here is your idler spindle. It would slide onto the idler spindle as such, and would hold it in place. It does kind of let it spin, but it doesn't really hold it in all that well. For the idler's retention system, we utilize the supplied plastic bearing ring and the supplied idler strut or idler mount. The way the way you secure the idler to the idler mount is by first adding in the bearing as like the kit would want you to, but then we have here the new machine PVC retainer, which will get glued to the idler mount like so, and this here will allow the bearing to pivot and spin freely, but will keep it from falling out. Once the PVC ring is glued permanently to the idler spindle, this will be mounted then to the road wheel. A small bead of glue will be added along this inner recess here, and the bearing will then get glued to the idler permanently. Once the glue sets, idler will still spin on the spindle, but once installed, will prevent it from falling out. The way the idler mounts to the tank itself is, over here you have the idler mount, and here's the idler spindle. The idler spindle has a hex prong to it, and the hole is also an X key, and it just fits in. Now, like most World War II, actually like almost all tracked vehicles, the idler is adjustable. More in case for World War II tanks that it's in the back, and for more modern vehicles, the idlers were moved to the front. Now, you could adjust it probably in this direction or in this direction. Instructions tells you to mount it over here. However, you could mount it, however, I'm still on the fence of exactly where to mount it, and the actual location is going to be determined once I assemble the tracks. As soon as the tracks are assembled, the whole unit will be mounted in as one piece. Before the unit gets mounted, the wheel itself will be primed and painted, and the rear portion will be having its weathering done, as like with the rest of the tank suspension, it's hard to get paint, or it's hard to get access to the rear portion of the wheels once they are fitted to the vehicle. This is why on all the road wheels, if we've noticed that the back portions of the rubber tires have been painted. The tank sprockets are designed to be fitted to the tank's final drives like that of the same as the road wheels and the idlers, in that we have here the drive sprocket, and we have here a plastic disc. This bearing disc here, or in this case would be more like a bushing, would be glued to this hub here of the sprocket. This then would slide onto the tank's stock final drive. This little bushing here would allow the sprocket to spin, but would pop off very easily. To stop this from happening, I had to redesign the way the sprocket and the final drive mount. And this here is the new system. The final drive itself has a small hollow tube that is molded into the final drive bell housing. This tube is too fragile to have the load on the sprocket alone. So what I did was I machined a resin mount that mounts in to the final drive from the inside. The mount itself strengthens the shaft as well as moves the load from the shaft to the bell housing itself, making it much more stronger. This mount then is where the fasteners get mounted so that the new bushing can spin freely and is held in place permanently. The way it mounts to the sprocket is the original plastic disc is not needed, and the new mound is perfectly machined so that it fits into the kit recess perfectly. Like so. This here is mounted now nice and flush to the final drive as per the kit. The sprocket will spin nice and free, and once it is glued on, a small bead of glue will be added here. It will be glued on to the resin mount. It will be on nice and it will be on permanently. Will not be able to come out, and will still spin nice and freely, as we see here. To mount the final drive to the tank, that's just simply done like the way the kit is intended. Now, as of note, since the way the kit is designed to use one runner multiple times, the final drive can be used on both the left and the right hand side. By doing this, the company molded in 3 mounting nubs here. There's only 2 on the hull, so one of them will need to be removed on each side. The way the final drive gets mounted to the hull is in this angle here. The two pegs line up, and this one here will need to be removed. This could easily be done with a Dremel with a cutting stone. Once it is removed, it is simply glued to the hull side. And that concludes this video update for this 1/6 scale German Dragon Panzer II Ausf. Stay tuned for more progress on this build, and don't forget to go to eastcoastarmory.com for more builds and more detailed components. Thank you.